Hello guys, how are you doing? Let me trust you're doing good wherever you are. Welcome to today's video. Here with me, I have a computer to fix. This is Lenovo T490. Yes, this is T490. As you can see, it is written here. Yes, normally the model for these ones are written here. You can see this one is T490. We have other models like this one, which is the T490S. We have T440, T440S, T460, T460S, and so many other models of this laptop. Okay, I can see there's a piece missing here for the keyboard. This clips here. Anyway, the problem with this one, the customer reports that this laptop is not taking any power. When you try to plug in power, there's no any sign of life with the motherboard, with no LED, no nothing. So we are going to try and see whether we can fix this laptop. We are going to try and see whether we can salvage this laptop. As always, we try to plug in, we try to switch on and see what is happening, whether it is something we can fix or not. When I switch it on, I can't see any LED. Then there's no sign of life anywhere. So let's plug in the power and see what will happen. When I plug in, normally I expect to see orange LED here to show that the laptop is charging, or the white LED, and actually it is charging. I can see there's an orange light there. Yeah, there's an orange light there. However, okay, this when I twist it in a certain way, there's an orange light. Try to switch, and actually the laptop is powering on. I can see the keyboard light is coming on, and boom, the laptop is powering on. Okay, actually the laptop is coming on. I don't know why the customer say this laptop is not SF1. Okay, actually the laptop is on. As I can see, actually it is trying to load the operating system, but the moment I try to move it a little bit, the laptop goes off. Okay, I believe we can tell what is actually the issue with this. So I believe we have a problem to do with the input power component, that is the port, because and this one actually is functioning. Yes, this one when I leave it that way, there's an orange light here. I don't know whether you can see it. Let me just twist it this way a little bit. Let me twist this way a little bit. Can you see the orange light there? There's an orange light this way. There's an orange light there. However, with the other one, with the other port, because this one has two ports, with this one, when you put the adapter, there's an orange. But the moment you try to put it down this way, the laptop actually stops showing that orange light or stops charging. Okay, at least we can tell what is wrong with this laptop, because this other port is actually working without me twisting that port. It is on. Switch it on. Can you see the light? There's a light there, and then the laptop is on. Actually, the laptop is on. Yes, the laptop is display. So let us wait and see whether we're gonna have it loading into the SSD. They're showing me some funny display there, and then let us see whether it will load into the operating system. To boot into the operating system. We're not able to boot into the operating system. I don't know whether we have an issue to do with the SSD or what. But at least we've seen the laptop is powering on. However, the power port, one of the power port is not able to keep the power running. I believe we could be having a problem to do with the here we have a problem to do with one of the ports, and then again there's an issue with this SSD. Anyway, what I'm going to do, we are going to disassemble this laptop. We check actually what's wrong with that port, and then later on we are going to test the health of this SSD. That we have to figure out whether the SSD is wrong or the boot order is wrong, or even the motherboard. You know, even the motherboard could be the issue. The laptop might not be able to boot into the Windows because the motherboard is faulty. So anyway, the best way for us is to open inside this laptop and then check for ourselves what actually is going on inside this laptop. And then from there, we try to fix. What is this? I have never seen something like this. It's a bit or what? I don't know what the hell is this. Now it came into, how did it lodge inside this hole here? You see? Okay. I don't want to comment anything on those. I don't know what kind of people who normally mishandles their laptops this way. So anyway, let us disassemble this and then find out what's going on inside the motherboard. If it is something simple, we can fix within seconds, and then we gonna fix it. If it is something big, we also going to check actually how we gonna restore the. At least we see the laptop is powering on. Now we know something. We are dealing with something small. That is the power port, and then we will end up killing that laptop. Not because you are not able to fix, but because you give wrong medication. Even in hospitals, if a patient get misdiagnosed, the end results is always worse. It is always the worst outcome because you end up the patient end up getting wrong medication. Then those medication, instead of healing that patient, it will do what? It will harm the patient. It will harm the patient. Okay. Anyway, even before we proceed into the motherboard itself, I like us to remove this SSD here and then we put it into my external reader, and then from there we are going to check the health of the this SSD from external. So this is my external reader. Let me just connect it this way. It's very simple. I just have to connect it this way. Yeah, and then I have this rubber. Is it the rubber shoe? Can I call rubber shoe or what? I have to plug it in that way. This way. And then I'll need the USB, any USB cable which can read the third data. I need the USB cable which can read the data. Here I have C to C cable. Then plug into my laptop, and then one end of the cable I'll plug it here. And then I expect to see this LED is powering on, and then from there we'll be able to know that you can see the LED powering on. So it means the SSD has been read by my laptop. So let me share the screen, and then we are going to see what actually is going on. Now this is my screen, and then I have the software which I normally use to read the health of the SSD. This is a disk Sentinel. This very free software. Just have to install in your laptop, and then you'll be able to use it to read the health and the performance of your hard disk or your SSD, both external or internal. So here with me, I have my this is my hard disk. This is the hard disk I'm using. As you can see, the health is 100%, the temperature is 27, and this is the SSD I am using inside my laptop with the health of 98%, temperature 40%, and then this is the SSD. This is the SSD of my customer, which I am using right now. And this SSD is having what? This SSD has a health of 88% and the temperature of 32%. So the health is 88%. The performance, you can see it is excellent. So I don't know why it was not able to boot into the operating system. Not unless the OS is crashed. Anyway, I don't want to speculate anything. Since we've seen the health, 88%, even though it's not perfect, but still good. Because this is SSD, I believe it should perform up to when it is maybe 70% or 60%. This 88% is good. That's why you can see the comment is excellent. Anyway, so let us proceed to our motherboard and check actually what is wrong. Now, anyway, since we've seen the health of the SSD of my customer is good, 88% is good. We are not going to stay there long. Let us disconnect the battery. Always the first thing to do once you remove the back lid and you're doing the disassembling, the first thing you have to do once you reach the motherboard is to remove the battery, because once you have the battery out, you will reduce the risk of causing the shorts in the motherboard. You know, during the disassembling, sometime you find a screw fell off on the motherboard like this one. You will see the moment I opened it, fell down. So when you have no power connected, the risk of shorting that motherboard is so minimal. The risk of shorting that motherboard is so minimal, so it will be less risk. So I have the battery out. Next thing to do is to do the disassembling. Our aim is to access this port. Yes, remember one of the ports was so loose. That's why the laptop wasn't powering on when you don't hold the power adapter. You are supposed to hold the power adapter. That is when the laptop will continuously be on. So give me a few minutes to disassemble this, and then we'll be able to check what is wrong with the motherboard. Now the motherboard is out. I was able to remove the motherboard. Next thing to do is to inspect that port. Which we know it is loose. I think so. And actually the port seems not to be loose. So I don't know why is it not able to keep holding the adapter. Because they say, as you can see, this port is strong. It's very strong, but I don't know why. Why is it not holding the power? Let us try again. We plug in the Type-C. You see, the Type-C is not able to. Okay, right now it is in taking. But the moment you move it around a little bit, it went off. When you hold this way, it behaves. But the moment you remove your hand, okay. Actually, bottom line, there's something wrong with this port. I think the best way for us to fix this is to change this port totally. Yes, we have to change this port, and I don't know whether I have another spare for this. Let me check with my box whether I have the port which you can replace with that. If I have it, it will be good news for me and for my customer. But again, if I do not have, I think the best thing is that we just recommend the customer to keep using one of the ports, because right now I do not think I have the port which I am supposed to solder it there. I do not have. Sorry guys, I do not have. Anyway, or I think what I have to do, because I don't have another port which I can replace with this, let me just remove this port and then resolder it back. Yeah, because if the port is loose, resoldering should fix the problem. Resoldering it back should fix the problem. So let us resolder this port. You're going to remove it and then resolder it back. The port is out. And actually it was so loose because I haven't even stayed for long, but it is already out. Okay. I haven't even stayed for long and it was already out. I am going to reapply some solder there. I have to reapply some solder there. I need a little bit of resin. Then we get solder wire. We have the solder wire here. I'll need the fume extractor because inhaling this fume every day is not good for my health. Yes, if I keep on inhaling this way, in the next few years, I'll be carving. I love asthma and any other disease associated with this inhalation of these chemicals. Now I'll need the soldering wick. Using my brand new desoldering wick. I haven't used this one. We are opening it together. Let's desolder this excess solder here. And we remove from this other side. Nice. So once we have the excess solder removed, again, let me try and apply some solder to these spots. Now let me have now the pot to be soldered. Next is the pot to be soldered. It is soldered. Now we need to strengthen it by applying solder to make it strong. And let me trust the process was smooth and the pot cannot. The pot should work. Yeah, the pot should work. Okay. I don't know whether the process was to be trusted or what. Should you trust the process? I have resoldered it. So let us see whether we did the good work. Oh, we have a problem. When I leave it, and actually this is not going off anymore. It's not going off anymore, you see. But why is it showing orange light continuously? Let's see this other one. When I leave it, I believe the problem is fixed. The fan is spinning and the CPU is getting hot and the port is not, the laptop is not going off anymore. So I believe the problem is fixed. Now let us close it and then we retest again. we see whether the issue is permanently resolved. Give me a few minutes to do so, to boot back the motherboard, and then we test the SSD. And again, I think we have a little issue here because I can see this switch, it is having some corrosion. So I can just clean it a little bit. It needs to clean it because there is no need for me to close it up and then I have to open it again to do 1, 2. Yes, if I saw the problem, we need to fix it before we proceed. We need to fix the issue before we proceed. Because why should you proceed knowing that you will come back to correct the issue? There's a corrosion with this switch. Why should you proceed knowing that you'll have to come back and correct the problem or to correct the mistake you saw? Because the bottom line, we need this motherboard up and running without any issue. The moment we saw something which might cause the problems, you need to fix that something before you proceed, because at the end you'll have to come back and redo whatever it was not done properly. So I believe the corrosion is no more, unless there is hidden corrosion somewhere. Here's the BIOS chip. This is 256 kilobyte BIOS chip. Okay, anyway, so let us close it. So we've closed the motherboard. Then I think the next thing for me is, can we connect the keyboard? Okay, I think it would be best we connect the keyboard and then we power it on and then see for ourselves what actually happens. Whether the laptop will keep on shutting down or whether the laptop will charge. I want the laptop to be powering on without what? Without holding the adapter. I have the keyboard installed. We need the charger. Plug into the not working port. And actually, when I left it, it is not shutting down. When you put it this way, not shutting down, and it is actually powering on. The laptop is on actually. Can you see the switch, the LED from the switch? And in fact, this LED is not going off anymore. Maybe because of that corrosion which is on the connector of the switch. Let's give it few minutes before we get the display. Normally, the laptop must take some few times as resetting the motherboard because we had disconnected the power, both the battery and the adapter. And then let us see whether I'll be able to boot into the operating system. The laptop is restarting. We need to escape because I want us to boot into the operating system. This is a different SSD. This is not the one which was here before this. And actually, this by other SSD is booting into the operating system. That means the motherboard is okay, the laptop is okay, but my problem is with the other SSD. Right now, the only issue I have is the other SSD because the other SSD was not able to boot into the operating system. Maybe the Windows is corrupt or the SSD itself is faulty. Nice. So let me shut it down and then we try with the SSD which belongs to this laptop. We try with the SSD which belongs to this laptop. And actually the laptop is good. You see, when I left without the support, it actually keep on powering on. It plugged in that one. I have a this is now the SSD which belongs to this laptop. Orange light is on. We switch it on because I have the CMOS connected, and the laptop is powering on. The laptop is powering on. Let us see whether we will have the operating system. Okay, we should be able to boot into the operating system, and it will bring us into the BIOS setup. Let us see the BIOS setup menu. I only have this one. Now this SSD is having an issue because even when you select that SSD, you want to boot with it, but nevertheless, somebody is having a different opinion, different idea. How are we going to boot with this SSD? Because you saw my other SSD boot on normally without these other things which needs me to select or to do. Yes, this one when you're in the boot menu. Yes, we have this SSD visible. This is NVMe 0 Samsung, but this SSD it cannot boot. Okay. Oh, this one I already recommend the customer. Oh, sorry, I'm yawning. I don't know. I don't know whether I'm hungry or what, or I'm tired, or I'm sleepy. So with this laptop, I'll recommend the customer to change this SSD because she saw the health for this one is 88%. Even though it was showing excellent performance, it might not be able to run the operating system normally, and that is why we are encountering these abnormal behaviors, like a laptop going directly into the BIOS setup without me selecting anything. That is very abnormal, very, very abnormal. Okay, anyway, guys, thank you so much for being patient, for watching this video, and for subscribing. In case you haven't subscribed, I'm still requesting you guys, please subscribe our channel, share with your friends, give us some comments. And in case if you're interested in learning about the laptop repairs, feel free. Do not hesitate to contact me so that we can discuss the way forward. How we gonna incorporate you into learning both online and offline. Whichever the module you're interested in, you're highly, highly welcome. Thank you so much, guys, and please do not forget to subscribe and see you in the next video.